Eclipse SE administration. This is where you do users and groups, create your case and edit your case, import, export documents, process, do your batch management, and run reports. We'll also cover production in another section. For user management, this is where you create your users, people who will go into your case, do your review, do your administration. To create a new user, we select this sunburst or starburst button, type in their full name, a user ID, and a password. You can also mark them as active or inactive if you would like them not to be in the system or to be in the system. Once you've created users, you can assign them privileges as well as cases and groups. We'll work with Bill Smith for right now. He's considered a standard user. That's his role. His default user privileges for that role are nothing. You see, everything is grayed out here. To edit those, we'll select the pencil button and then choose either a role or more of an a la carte situation. The standard user can be an a la carte situation where you select specifically Power User has most of the viewer privileges, but no case administrator privileges. Some of the viewer privileges they're missing are global replace, importing transcripts, and updating lock tags. Case administrator has all viewer privileges and everything in the case administrator privileges except creating a new case. Super admins have everything. For case assignments, we can choose what cases we want them to be assigned to and what groups we want them to be assigned to. Under group management, we can create groups. Instead of organizing our user privileges at a user level, we can assign those users to groups and then assign the group roles and privileges. In this case, we have a review group for Med-Mal. The user role is case administrator. So if we select the pencil, we'll see that case admin is selected. Any client cases or any users associated with this case, users will all have case administrator privileges to the Banana Boat or Globex case. Under client management is where we select and create our clients. We cannot have a case without creating a client first. As you see, we have a couple clients here: Banana Boat, Costco, Globex, and Kate Spade. Some of them have addresses, contact information, and you can also see how many cases have been created under this client. Globex in particular has 1, Kate Spade has 5, and Banana Boat has 2. To create a new client, we select this little picture with 2 people and a sunburst. We create that client ID. The client ID is not optional. You do need to have a client ID, but address, contact information, notes are all optional. Once we've created a client, we can create a case. So our first step in case creation is selecting that client ID. We'll select Globex. Now give it a case name. So let's do Globex v. Honeybees. We can give it a matter number. This can be your internal matter number, or it can be a CV number. If it's a civil case, maybe a criminal case, it's a CR case, whatever the case may be, you can add it there. Data directory will fill out as to where your data is going to be stored. Step 2 is load case definition files. We have 5 options to choose from. Option 1 is copy from an existing case. So if you have a client and case set up that has the right tags, has the right fields, has the right redactions, coding forms, and saved searches, you can copy from that case. Be mindful that this is a dynamic save, so whatever condition the case is in as of right now is what we'll copy over. So be mindful if things have changed in there. Check it out before. Load from a case definition file is a more static option of a copy from an existing case. If you created template clients with template cases, maybe a bunch of templates for your Med-Mal cases, depending on how attorneys like them arranged, or the type of Med-Mal case, you can create a case definition file based on that case at a certain point in time and pull from that every time. So that way you know it always has the same fields, it always has the same tag palette, always has the same searches, and you don't have to worry about people going in and out and changing those up for you. Option 3, load files from a data load file. This is if you haven't created your case but received a data load file that you want to create your case based off on that. Be mindful, you need to make sure that you have all of the fields necessary to run your database, as well as all the necessary fields you need to run. If you're getting it from opposing counsel, that might not include things like attorney comments, beg doc fields, indoc fields, beg attach fields, indetach fields, things that you need in order to run your database successfully. So be mindful there, you will need to create those cases or fields in step 3. Use default template. Default template has the bare minimum to run your database as well as maybe a handful of others. So you have beg doc, indoc, beg attach, indetach, native file, extracted text, so all the text to your documents, your hash values, some image count, some custodian fields. But if you notice things that are missing are like mail to, from, sent, date, time, date created, subject, those kinds of things are missing. This isn't designed for native file ingestion, emails, anything like that. You'll have to add these all, or you can use option 5. This has about 58 fields associated with it. It has everything that option 4 had, plus all of those ESI fields like mail to, from, sent, creation date, flag, sensitivity, all of that. If you don't have an existing case that's perfect, a case definition file that you want to work off, option 5 is really a great option to work off of. So we're going to work off that today. Step 3, let's define all these fields. These are the 58 fields that were in the native file ingestion. We can edit them by using this little pencil and paper. We can delete them if we'd like. We can create a new field if we want to go up to the top left. So let's create a new field. Select it. I'm going to give it a name. We're going to call it attorney comments. That's a really common field that people add. Field type for this, for attorney comments, are going to be single value or memo. I suggest single value. Single value can hold up to 1,000 characters of text, whereas memo can hold up to a gig of text. You really don't want to create this as a memo field. If people have the availability to write a novel in there, they probably will and kind of blindside or not notice that there are other options to use for tags. If you are hitting that threshold of 1,000 characters under single value, that's a great opportunity to talk to that attorney, talk to that paralegal about using tags. Maybe if you see that they're typing in use for depot prep with witness Todd, use for depot prep with expert Bob. Maybe you create a tag group for expert review or witness review. Put those witnesses under those categories, and instead of having to type it in every time, having to do selective searches, all you have to do is tag the document, and then you can right-click and search from those tags. You can run better reporting, you can run better searching off those documents. It's a much better way to work, and it takes away from what you have to type in that attorney comments field and really leave it to true attorney comments. Other options we have here is including full text index search, use spell check. We have flags such as sort key, primary sort key, and category. Now, attorney comments field, you probably don't want to sort that. That's not going to be a great field to sort off of. Primary key sortable is your beg doc number. That's your control number. That's going to be needing to be something unique for every document. Every document is going to have to have something in that field. Not great for attorney comments. Category is just how it sounds. It can be a category field where you can kind of organize it by groups. This is great for doc type, doc style. Maybe if you're working with a parent company and its entities, maybe you have custodians from all of the entities as individuals, but you kind of need a field that says which entity it relates to, which entity they work for, whether they're managers, whether they're regional district VPs or something like that. You can make that a category field and be able to sort it and organize it a little bit better. Other options include pick list, control list, and name list. Pick list kind of works like how Google browsers work. You have options in here, but you're not stuck with them. So maybe email, letter, agreement. You can have those options, but also the reviewer can type in whatever they would like. These are just kind of little shortcuts for them. With a control list, they are stuck with using these. They can only use those words that are in here. So if there are differences between agreements and contracts, but you want every contract and every agreement to be coded one way in that particular field, maybe use a control list so they can only choose agreement. They might be inclined to put in or type in contract, but that's not an option, so they'll select agreement. Maybe things like correspondence. I did too many things. Maybe things like correspondence. They'd be inclined to separate it by email, letter, or memo, but maybe you want it all to be under a correspondence kind of header or category. This can be a great way to control that reviewer restriction. Name list works very similar. You just use names. You can also give permission access to these fields. Do you want your reviewers to all be able to update this? Do you only want certain reviewers to update this? Do you only want certain reviewers to see it but not be able to update it, or deny them access entirely? You can add groups and restrict them accordingly. I'm going to save this, and now at the bottom of my screen and the bottom of my list, I have my attorney comments field as the 58th item. Step 4, create tag palette. We don't have any tags in here, so let's create them. Our tags are created by group and then tags under that. So group works like a category. So, popular groups might be responsiveness, might be relevance, might be productions. That's a really popular one. Confidentiality, witness prep. We talked about that earlier. Those are kinds of groups, and then we'd create tags under those groups. So maybe responsive, we'll select create tags, and maybe it's responsive yes, or maybe it's responsive no. Maybe we want to do subcategories. If it's responsive, we'll create a sub tag under this. Is it responsive to RFP1, RFP2, RFP3? Maybe it's responsive to all of them. Maybe it's just responsive to one or two. You can create child tags under here. Relevancy could also be a yes or no. Production, I see a lot of the times people putting in their initial disclosure date deadline. So maybe we'll put this as 11/30/2020, plaintiff's initial disclosure. And now we have a tag set up for this based on the initial disclosure deadline, and we can start tagging documents for production right away. Confidential, great ones for that are true confidential, maybe attorney-client privilege, work product doctrine, subject to protective order, those kinds of things. And witness prep, like we talked about, maybe witness Todd, expert Bob. Maybe he doesn't need 2 B's. We also have tag group rules. Just like we have user and permission roles, we have tag group rules. We can make them exclusive, so you can't choose both yes or no. It's got to be one or the other. Required really is more important or more relevant in coding forms and batches. If you're working in a coding form in batch and require this tag to be selected, either yes or no, the user can't continue on with their review until they select it. Locked means it's no longer in use. Required child tag. So if they select yes, they need to be required to choose whether it's RFP 1, 2, and or 3. Otherwise, they can choose yes, but not define it otherwise. Tag entire family. This is really great and really something you need to consider when you're working with confidentiality. A lot of attorneys have different perceptions on confidentiality. It's up to interpretation more or less depending on your jurisdiction, so I always talk about it here. Tag entire family says that if the email is tagged as attorney-client privilege, it will also automatically tag any attachments to that email as attorney-client privilege. That can really speed up your processing. The only problem is what if your concept of attorney-client privilege doesn't really fall in line? So what if the email itself is attorney-client privilege, but the attachments were maybe the complaint and answer, publicly available information? Maybe you don't consider that attorney-client privilege. You wouldn't want to use this tag entire family because you will want to produce that attachment. Otherwise, it would be tagged as attorney-client privilege. So things to consider when you're using these tag group rules. For tags themselves, we have a couple of options. Show on default palette, include in privilege report. So things like attorney-client privilege, work product doctrine, you probably want to include in the privilege report. Maybe subject to protective order if your protective order hasn't been put in place. Shortcut keys, we can assign shortcut keys. Maybe anything tagged Control P will automatically tag as protective order. Maybe W for work product doctrine, maybe Control A for attorney-client privilege, and maybe Control C for confidentiality. You can do it for any of these tags. We can also kind of kill two birds with one stone here. Create a transcript issue. Chances are, if you're tagging documents for review or use with expert Todd or witness Todd and expert Bob, you're probably going to be highlighting some text in transcripts for them to review or things you want to talk to them about. Why don't you just create the transcript issue here while you're creating the case instead of having to go back later when you start working in those transcripts and creating them? There is no correlation between the two, but it will create both of them for you. We've selected OK, and now we have all of our tags and tag groups with whether or not they show on the palette, whether or not they're going to be on the privilege log, and your shortcut keys. Step 5 is your redaction palette. We create and provide one for you, your traditional redaction. You can create up to 99 redactions here. They can be color-coded if you'd like, or you can keep them all black with white font, or just black on black, white on white, whatever you'd like. Give it a label name. Choose the font style and font effects. Choose your redaction color here. You can have different font colors, you can have different redaction colors, and maybe if you put something like PII, maybe you want to further describe it as personally identifiable information here. You can put in that description. Again, you can have 99. You can choose to color code it. You can choose not to color code it. That's up to you. In your productions, if you choose that you want color coding here and now, but you don't want to produce that color coding, that's fine. In production, we can force everything to a black and white redaction instead of producing that color. Or maybe in lieu of a privilege log, you redact everything with that color coding, provide them with that legend, and produce it with that color coding, then not having to, produce a log necessarily with it and just have the redactions there on the document. I've seen clients do that as well. Step 6, your case options. You have options to tag at the document level, page level, or both. Most common is document level. Next common is document or page level. Page level only is not the most common. Document level allows you to tag that entire document and will tag all pages of that document. If you do it document or page level, this will allow you to tag parts of the document with different stamps. So maybe part of it is confidential and then part of it is subject to protective order. Or maybe some of it's not confidential and then attachments to the contract are confidential. You can tag them that way if you don't have them unitized. History tracking options, maybe also tattletalers. They're really great for analytics, really keeping track of what you're doing, how you're doing it, and how quickly you need to get things done. You can track your database changes, how many documents are being tagged, what they're being tagged with. You can also see how long you've been in a database. So if you do have to recreate your time or forget to type in or write down what time you entered that case for your review, it's now maybe 3 or 4 hours later, you're not sure what your time was in there. You can pull up your history tracking options, see how long you've been in the database, how long you've been active, how long you've been idle. You can check and see how many documents you're annotating or changing or coding within an hour. Are you going to have to work over the weekend? Do you need some extra help? Are you right on track to get that disclosure out? This is really nice information to know. Display formatting options. How do you like to see your date? Are you a month, day, year person or a year, month, date person? Month, day, year with month spelled out. Do you like slashes, periods, or hyphens between those dates? Zero fill options. If there is a date field, if you don't check any of these, it's going to be blank. If you check fill empty dates, it's going to fill with zeros. If you use 9s to fill dates, it's going to choose 9s instead of the blanks. This is up to you. It's your preference. Import options require validation of load files. Keep this checked. This is a 2-second process that can save you 20 hours later down the road. When you're importing load files, which we'll cover later, it will automatically validate and make sure you kind of have picked the right options and it meshes well with the data you're importing and with your database. If you don't select this, don't validate, and you have a little hiccup, You might not realize it until months later in the case and have to redo everything or have invalid searches. So this is a really, again, nice 2-second process that can save you time in the end. Native time zone. I have people going different ways on this. Universal coordinated time is the most exact time. It is truly the most exact time. It works on plus and minuses. If we check out this, you can see UTC -4 is Georgetown, La Paz, Manao, and San Juan. Santiago is also a -4. Maybe if we go mid-Atlantic old, we have -2. Beirut, Cairo, we have every country in here and portions of country that have different time zones. Hawaii, Alaska, Arizona, which is where I am, is a -7. You can also choose it to your own time zone. So if these documents are really mostly in Arizona, you can choose your Arizona time zone. Don't have to worry about doing, any coordinated time, any chronologies being off. If you have emails or documents coming in from different time zones, you might want to stick with universal coordinated time. So that way you can have a true chronology. You don't have emails sent before somebody else replied or after someone else replied because of how the time zones work. Whereas if you do put it in a time zone, you might not have that true chronology because it's going to go based on that time zone. So it's up to you how you want to do this. A lot of people do universal coordinated time. A lot of people do their local time. Full stop text index. Don't disable this. Stop word lists are junk words. Words like not, as, this, on. They're commonly used English language words that we're not really going to search on. So why put them in your database to gunk it up, right? This sentence right here has at least 5 or 6 stop words. We don't need to be searching the word on most of the time, or maybe this, will. Those are things that we're not going to be searching. So why put them in the index? Why junk up our database? Don't deselect this. If you need to change words on the stop list, that's fine. We can edit it at a different time, add more, remove more. Just don't disable all of them. Step 7 is finish. This is also where we can see our stop word list. This is where we can modify. These are all 128 stop word lists. If our client's acronym is A and D, highlight it and take it out. If you want to add more words to this, you definitely can down here. This isn't something that's super solid. You can definitely manipulate it. I've had people put in French terminology in here. I've seen people put other words that just came up a bunch and they don't want to search it. And it really cools down on their database and indexing. Other things here on the summary: what's your image key field? Where's your data directory? Case administrator. Who's going to be the main case administrator for this? In this case, it's going to be me, which is this Eclipse user. And then we're going to create our case. Our Globex case was successfully created. We can go now into case management, select our case, and we can see all the options. We can modify our case, change those case details around. So if we've decided we don't want universal coordinated time, we want to change our native time zone, we can do so here. We can export that case definition file right here. We can upload instructions, maybe some Word documents, some PDFs, tell reviewers how to review this database, what's pertinent, what's not. Case documents, maybe we upload the complaint, maybe an RFP request, things that we're going to be looking at a lot, but we don't want to be actually as e-discovery documents to be produced. We just need to look at them to help us better code. We can also upload alerts, deadlines that are coming up, things like that. Database fields, this is where we can add and remove additional fields, add additional users or groups, add or remove tags. Same with redactions, same with stop words. We don't have any database records right now, but if we did, we could list all of our records and kind of see some administration versions of what our documents have, where its image file lives, whether or not it has extracted text, what its metadata fields look like. We can do some administrative reporting. Do we have gaps in our BegDoc numbers? Where are all our document volume paths located? Run a duplicates report off a SHA-1 hash value. See if there are any broken links in our database. Create a production shield. This is a really nice kind of time saver. It keeps you from chasing after the FedEx man maybe. This is an extra added layer of protection when you're doing your productions. You can build this search and say all documents tagged attorney-client privilege, value tagged. We'll clear our search connector, and in our query builder, we'll see doc tags ACP tagged, and we'll select done. We'll call this search ACP. And now I have a production shield set for any documents tagged attorney-client privilege. When we go into production, if I accidentally tag some documents for production that were also attorney-client privilege, it will prompt me and say, hey, wait a minute, you told me you don't want me to produce anything that's attorney-client privilege. You have some documents in here. How do you want me to handle it? Do you want me to pull out those attorney-client privilege documents and you go on your merry way with production? Or do you want to abort this production and maybe look at those documents, change this shield? So it's just an added layer of protection to keep you or prevent you from producing things you didn't intend to do. To load your transcripts, you can do that here. I have my issues that came over with my tag palette. I have no transcripts right now. We can create transcript types and transcript groups if we want organization. So we'll add a transcript type and we'll say expert depots and maybe witness depots. Those will be our lay witnesses. We have two different types of transcripts. Then we can load them here by selecting this little folder button. Browse out to our transcript. So if you bear with me, I'm going to browse out to some transcripts. We'll bring in Bill Gates for today. Select import transcripts here in the corner. It'll bring in our transcript, it'll tell us we're completed, and it brought in Bill Gates here. I can right click, move to a particular type, maybe he's just a basic lay witness, and now I have my transcript under witness depots. Any issues that it had associated with it, like from an MDB file, will be added if we so choose. On our selection for import, we can create new issues, import existing issues only and not the transcript. Ignore those issues and ignore annotations. So we can bring in some work product if your transcript has work product. Keywords work like persistent highlighting. They're organized by groups and then terms within that group. So commonly, we'll go with hot terms. What do you want the text color to be? And maybe what do you want the highlight color to be? So maybe I want my highlight color to be magenta. We'll do a bright pink, really stands out. Words like technology, manager, IPRO, manual. Those are going to be hot terms in my case, maybe. I just happen to know that they come up in my documentation a lot. So we'll type those in my hot terms. I've also seen people put in attorney-client names in order to further identify their attorney-client privileges documents a little faster, a little quicker. You can have as many groups as you want, I believe up to 99. Just be mindful that if you have that many groups with that many terms in there, your documents might be a little too overwhelming with bright colors. We're going to hit save, and now once we import some documents, we'll see that highlight color come up when it hits on those words like technology, manager, IPRO, and manual. Coding forms, we can use coding forms either within our traditional review database or we can use them in batches. Coding forms just kind of condense what we're able to see or what the world is available to us and puts it into a little bit smaller terms, so maybe we can do our job a little bit more efficiently if we're doing review passes. So we'll call this review pass for ACP, attorney-client privilege. Let's think about what kinds of fields do we need if we're just doing a privilege pass. We probably need big doc, like a control number, maybe a creation date and time, custodian, maybe a duplicate custodian, an attorney-client, attorney comments field maybe. Maybe we don't really need anything else. Maybe we want our mailed to, sent from. Maybe it's not important. We can change the order in which these show. So maybe if I want custodian and dupe custodian, I can use the up and down arrows to choose how they're organized. Next are tags. Which tags do I really need to see for a review pass? Probably only confidential, right? Maybe I only need to see ACP, work product, not confidential, not PO. I don't need to see any of this responsiveness. I just need to see this group with these two tags. I can also set up rules for my reviewers. Maybe I'll call this the ACP rule. We'll say if tag ACP is tagged, then field attorney comments must not be empty. This forces the reviewer in a batch who chooses ACP to then fill out the attorney comments field with why they have chosen ACP. Or maybe we can change it to work product doctrine, why they chose work product doctrine. It just gives an added rule before they can progress and continue to the next document if need be. Security, who has access to this coding form, whether it be a group or users. Options, we can do a date range, we can use default sort index if we would like, and we can assign shortcut keys to this coding form. So maybe editing the BegDoc field could be Alt B, maybe editing that attorney comments field can be Alt A. Select OK, and now I have a new coding form for me to use either in review or in a batch. Thank you for attending today.